Hello, everyone. Get out your books and the notes you started yesterday, and I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit and then come back. I be stressed. I love that. Is that kind of the IB shirt?
It's the IB shirt from a few years ago.
I have done with caution. Yes, okay, I'm going to turn off the light for just a minute. We're going to talk about Hamlet for about 10 seconds. You're into Act 1, right?
Yeah.
You're handling it by yourself?
Yeah.
Good luck. All right. No, I don't mean that. That sounded hard. That is beneath me. All right. Clarky. That is beneath me. All right. Here we go. Now, this is a map of Scandinavia. And Hamlet there really was a Prince Hamlet in Scandinavia. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Was this note page given yesterday?
Yeah, but we recorded the lecture so that y'all can have it.
All right. I was just wondering if I could have it. I wasn't here yesterday.
I know that, and we almost canceled calling. But there were some other people not here either, and wonderful Jason decided to, we recorded the class. So now I think you can do something fancy, like put it on that Chromebook or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
And I was very threatened, but I had to watch my language and all of that kind of stuff. All right, here we go. Let me tell you, we talked yesterday about the importance of setting. Where does Death of a Salesman take place? New England. He lives in New York, but his territory is New England, and I'm not going to go back into all of the suggestions about that. But this is, oh, good, I can use my hand. All right, here we go. Now, this is Denmark, right here. You see that little country right there, just sticking up into the Baltic Sea? That's Denmark. And the name of the play is Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. Now, Hamlet, there's some characters in this play, and I'm going to introduce them to you in a minute, that you need to know where they are. Hamlet has come home because his father has died. He has come home for the funeral of his father. What?
The wedding.
I love it. Yeah. Well, as he says to Horatio, thrift, Horatio. We used the same meats and flowers for the funeral for the wedding. Yeah. So very sarcastically, you can tell Hamlet, can't believe I'm going to use this talking about Shakespeare. Hamlet ain't too happy about his mother's getting married in a hurry, in a big hurry. All right. She's too old to be pregnant, but anyway, but she did get married in a hurry. All right. Now, right here is Denmark, and Hamlet has come back he goes to college in Wittenberg, Germany. You world history students and Reformation students, why is Wittenberg? It's pronounced Wittenberg, but we call it Wittenberg. But why is Wittenberg? Yes.
Isn't that what Martin Luther was?
You're absolutely right. He nailed his 95 Theses on. He was a Catholic monk, priest. Thank you very much, Mr. Clardy. Anyway, he was a Catholic monk and priest, and is it now? Is it for now? It's not for now. Okay, I love all those things. All right, don't you? I can tell we have a club. He goes to college right here in Wittenberg. When you read the play, you think it's a long way off. It is not. Now, what does it tell you about Hamlet's education? Wittenberg was the leading university in Europe at that time. I'm not going to compare it to Oxford and Cambridge and all that. That's another story. But during this time, the Reformation, and so the learning that he was getting would be extremely modern. It's not the Catholic experience that we would have had like 50 or 60 years later. So he goes to school in Wittenberg, and his college friend Horatio, I don't know if they were fraternity brothers or not, But anyway, his best friend has come for his father's funeral. So they come here. Now, there's another person we're going to meet in just a minute. You probably already met him. There, Norway and Sweden. This is Norway. Doesn't this look like a dragon or something? I love it. I love Scandinavia. But by the way, Norway has just been deemed the happiest place to live in the world. I'm sure it's because of Prince Fortinbras who came from there. But anyway, this is all historical. Prince Fortinbras is, and you find out about it in Act 1. He wants passage to go through Denmark on his way to Poland. So he asked King Claudius, hey, neighbor, I'm not going to bother you, but can I just kind of go through Denmark so I can get to Poland where I'm going to have this next war? And there are reasons he needs to go to Poland. I won't get into that right now. And so, and then you hear all kinds of reasons what's going on there. Now, the important thing I want you to know also, one more thing, and this gets into Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, which you're going to read later, but it's very important in Hamlet. Okay, over here in the North Sea is a country called Great Britain or England. Ever heard of it?
No.
Well, I'm here to tell you about it. England pays tribute. That's really kind of bribe money. Tribute to Denmark for safe passage through these waters on its way to wherever. And so whether it's pirates or anything else, Denmark gets money from England to not attack their ships, or even more than that, to help protect it. I'm telling you this because it's very important to the plot of Hamlet. And that's all I want to say about that. Is there anything you want to ask me about the geography here? Okay. Well, I'm coming back. I'm going to come back for 4 more days. 2 days to review you on Hamlet, and 2 days to get you ready for paper 1 and paper 2 of the IB. Okay? Not okay? Well, you can lock me out. All right. Okay. Now, this is an actual IB test, IB exam, paper 2. And each school gets to choose. Here, I'll put it down just a little bit. Have y'all seen all this before? I don't want to waste time showing you something you've seen before. Okay. I didn't think you had. All right. Just a minute. Get with it, Mary. Okay. Now, I talk to myself all the time. All right. Now, you're going to have a ton of questions. The only ones you are allowed to answer are the ones over drama. Why? Because your school chose this category as the one that you're supposed to write about. The school can change the category next year. We've had others in the past, but for the last 5 or 6 years, it's been drama. Now, you have a choice of which question to write about. Number 1 usually has to do with plot. As the action of the play unfolds, dramatic tension is often produced by the contrast of concealment and revelation. In other words, it's almost like a mystery. Now, in Death of a Salesman, what is it that's concealed in the first act that we find out in the second act? That's a rhetorical question because I love showing off and answering it for you. What is it that's concealed? Number 1, what was it that made Biff run away from home? What was it that made Biff and his father so estranged when his father had adored him? My son Biff, the football hero. So why are they so angry at each other? Secondly, why, indeed, there are a lot of other things. And then Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? What is it we learn in the very last 20 pages of the play? Our baby boy, the little bugger, never existed. Okay? We find out a lot of things. And if you'll notice, the names of all, we're going to go over Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf today, but the names of all the acts have fun and games. What are the games? Humiliate the host. What? What did George do that has made him such an emotional and psychological cripple? Number two, hump the hostess. Why? What is what does that mean? And then number three, get the guess. What is it in Nick and Honey's background that is ferreted out? So, and then in Hamlet, there in Act One, the ghost comes to him. Have you finished Act One? I don't want to give anything away.
No.
You have not. Raise your hand if you have not finished Act One. And that's okay. Well, then I'm not going to. But let me just say this: is what you've met. If you've read Scene One, you've met the ghost, right? All right. And they said we're going to go get Hamlet, and the ghost will talk to Hamlet. Who does the ghost look like? His father is dead now. So without giving away the plot, what is it that the ghost tells Hamlet, and is it the truth? Is it the truth? And that's going to be one of the huge things in the whole play. Okay. So this is going, and you'll have something like this where you have to refer to specific examples in the play. And then you'll have a second one like this. Compare and contrast the presentation of any 3 or 4 characters in plays you have studied. Say how and how effectively each character seems to you to further the dramatic force of the play in which he or she appears. Okay. There's so many, this seems a little more vague, but if you can get your hands around it, golly, that's so, how does the character of Nick further the action of the play? Well, he goes to bed with Martha. That kind of furthers the action. Well, it's inaction, isn't it? But anyway, it furthers that, and there are a lot. You can put your face around that. Now, there's one other one I want to show you because neither one of those has to do with structure. Now, these are not ones you're going to write about, but look at these. I'm not even going to it's about the novel, but what do you learn about a culture from reading prose works? How is this knowledge imaginatively presented in the works you have read? Our culture. You have 2 plays that take place in New England. That's the United States of America. And you've got, neither one of them are comedies. Maybe, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is a dark comedy. We're going to talk about the ending of it, whether it is depressing or whether it's uplifting. You say we English teachers never teach anything uplifting. Well, I'm going to challenge you on that. And then but what does Hamlet reveal about the Reformation Renaissance? And they go together. Shakespeare's Renaissance, and what are they, a Reformation? And one of the things I'd ask you to look at in Hamlet, let's talk theology, religion. How is religion used in Hamlet? Is there any thematic? All right, and then I'll go to a couple more down here. Now, this is the kind of thing that is not plot. Realism is as contrived a way of writing as any of the methods of writing against which it is defined. With specific reference to 2 or 3 works which you have read, say how far you would agree with this proposition. All right, they're saying that anybody who tries to write in realism, that's just as distorted as some of the others. Now let's talk about the 3 plays right now. What is not real when we talked about Death of a Salesman yesterday? What's the one character I had you put the little notch by? Uncle Ben. If you don't realize, and if you have not read the stage directions, and you do not realize that when you're over here in the stage, and Willie's talking to Uncle Ben, and most productions of this play will have a real life Uncle Ben. They may have a little scrim over it so that it's not quite like a real person. That's Uncle Ben doesn't come in and just talk like that. Okay? we're seeing Willie's imagination, or if you will, stream of consciousness. Now, in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? What's the reality of it? Is it real? Is the baby real? No, that's not. So sometimes, some of it is, but some of it isn't. And some of it isn't. And in Hamlet, most Shakespearean tragedies have something that's not real. A ghost, unless you believe in ghosts. Well, I mean, that's fine if you do. You can say, it's just realistic to me. I met one yesterday. But for most people, seeing Hamlet and having the ghost come in, if a ghost walked in this room today and Hamlet said, hi, that really doesn't happen, at least in my world. Maybe it does in yours. I have a doctor I'll recommend. But but if it happens in yours, and look in, have you read Macbeth?
Mm-hmm.
All right, the three witches. And I've seen, boy, the reason you love Shakespeare, if you're a director, is that there are no stage directions. You can do anything with it you want. You can interpret. You can't cancel the words, but you can interpret. And I've seen those three witches played as the kind of with the big tall black hats, with the cauldron. I've seen them played as hags, homeless women living in the country. I've also seen them as just apparitions, where you have again the scrim in front of you, and these figures and forms are going behind. So Shakespeare plays around a whole lot with that, with trying to decide what's real or not. Okay. This is what I really want you to focus on, because this, remember when, I'll review this in a minute. Compare the subject matter and style. How is it written? How is it written? Of 2 or 3 works you have read, which highlight regional locality, saying in each case what is gained by this local focus. Well, you might not want to think about it until you go to, I think you could do a good job with this. Okay, enough of this. We'll actually get back. Okay. Okay. Oh, come on. This makes me look sharper to you. All righty. Now, we went over the settings of these yesterday. I want to, and when you're writing about this, always what's going on, how, and why. Why does the author do it this way? Now, I want to talk about men and women for a minute. And these plays were all written long before LGBTQ, and were anything more than just letters in the alphabet. So if you think that I'm attacking anything like that, I'm absolutely not. But gender, the role of gender in these plays is huge. And who is the male? Who acts the male? Who acts the female? Now, this type of symbol is very popular for a lot of reasons. Even the IB symbol, isn't it, with some little countries in there? And then it's the environmental symbol. It's also used to be, it's not used anymore, it's the symbol of androgyny. Do you know what androgyny means? Okay, androgyny. And it means that, I didn't mean to diminish the female here. Okay, we're good. All right, male, female, if you look at the division male, female, it's usually depicted as a straight line, or it used to be. And we're not going to get into any of the gender studies now. Okay, Shakespeare had never heard of them. But the symbol for androgyny suggests that all males have some degree of stereotypical, not hormonal or anything like that, but stereotypical female characteristics. They're different. For instance, what am I talking about? The father, who instead of just being the strict this, is actually very nurturing. Very nurturing. The father who loves to cook. That kind of thing. Way beyond how the stereotypes have been broken down. On the other hand, females all the way back from the Stone Age, especially in all historical situations. There are certain things that the mother, the nurturing, the one with the womb, has also become kind of didn't have domineering facts. Have you ever heard anyone say the old phrase, "She wears the pants in the family"? That's what they're talking about. That she has, the woman has taken over the type A male, alpha male situation. But in these plays, I want you to look. In the first part of Death of a Salesman, I have neglected, you're gonna have we meet this character Bernard. Bernard. The first time we meet him, and I can't stand to watch Bernard in the first act of I want to get up on stage and say, "Stop it!" Because he's this wimpy little guy like this, and he's always, "Biff, you need to study your math. I'll help tutor you, because if you fail," I said yesterday, I'm going to fail and go to college, play football. I can handle that, but what I can't handle is the pathetic time when Biff is going off to the football game, as I told you yesterday, and he says, "Can I carry your shoulder pads?" All right. Now look at what happens to Bernard. He has an unfortunate name, but that's beside the question. Look what happens to him in the second act. He comes back and he has gotten his law degree. He's a law professor. He is arguing. He's come home to visit his parents on his way to Washington. He's going to argue. He's been chosen out of a class action suit to argue in front of the Supreme Court. Here's this little wimpy guy. And on his way, he's going to go to Washington a couple of days early because one of his best friends owns a large home in Virginia, and they like to play tennis together. Now, this may not be important to you, but what did Biff major in? And his father pushed him so football. I'm a football fan, that's fine. My husband went to college on a football scholarship. That's fine, he doesn't play football now. In fact, he hasn't played football since 1964. We have a couple of pictures around. We don't even tell stories about it. What does Bernard do? Instead of playing something that is, I'm not even going to characterize football. Bernard plays tennis, does he not? It's a life sport. So here he is. So he's preparing. I don't want to make too much out of this, but he's preparing for life. Bernard was the moment in the sun, in the spotlight, so to speak. So let's look at male, female. So at first, Biff seems to be the alpha male, but at the end of it, Bernard is the alpha male. But look at the difference. How does Bernard act to Willie when he sees him? How's Biff? Tell him hello. I wish I could see him, but I've got to leave tonight. He's very kind. He knows that Biff has been a screw up, but he's very kind and doesn't rub in his face. Okay. Now let's go to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and see what we can do with that. Get out your list of notes, and if you weren't here yesterday, I see what you're talking about. If you were not, yeah, it's called being over 80. All right, who else needs one? Here. Okay. Now, I want you to, those of you who weren't here yesterday, turn to what it says, page 7. It's not page 7, but I'll tell you what we were doing yesterday. The last thing that I told you to do is look at number 6, symbolism and earth. And by the way, never cross out the word symbolism. Don't ever, ever, ever say that something symbolizes something. The word you use instead is suggests or implies. Now, and thematic, circle the ones you could attempt to analyze, and then also the one right above it, number 5. This is you're going to rank 1 through 5 what you think this play is about. Now, stop just a minute and look at me. Feast your eyes. Every one of these, I Googled Who's Afraid of Virginia, Death of a Salesman interpretations. I just Googled it. I wanted to see what people said, and these are copied straight from reviews on the internet. So I don't want you to use any of these, but you can look at the ideas, and after I leave and while you're studying, go through and list 1 through 5 what you think this plays about. Some of them ring true to me, others are a little far-fetched to me, as far as I'm concerned. Now, let's go down the middle of the page, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Titles. Let's look at them. Well, there's nothing about the Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. Well, you know what? Look at it. By all rights, he should be king. Shouldn't he? So, even though that seems, or at least you would think he would be, but his uncle, the brother of his father, is king. I don't think that's kind of the middle. But death of a salesman, there's nothing there. Really? When you're talking about something, you can talk about what it's not as much as what it is. Death of a salesman? Willie Loman was a human being. Not death of the salesman, or the salesman's death. But by saying death of a salesman, to Mary, to moi, that suggests the non-entity, just the cog in the wheel. Another one. Hit the dirt, hit the dust. I can't remember the name of that song. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. But so it just the anonymity of it, and then especially when you read the last act, the Requiem, and nobody comes to his funeral except for Charlie's family and his family. So again, suggesting what happens to human beings in a certain thing. Now, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? You are never bringing to your essays, I know, Ms. Adams, how many times you have to tell us this? About 1 million more. Never bring to your essays anything other than the text and this. And what I'm afraid you might do, and talking about setting of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, let's look at it. A small college in New England. Both of these take place in New England. The hope of the people who immigrated, the Pilgrims, have this new wonderful land for a while until we had to say the witchcraft. The living room of George and Martha's home. Do not refer to the movie. Let me take one. The entire play takes place in one room, no bigger than this. No bigger than this. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced claustrophobia, but when you hear all the yelling and screaming and drinking and carrying on, and nobody, and everything's in this room, the whole emotional atmosphere gets, would somebody please go somewhere? Now you have people going out. Honey goes out to vomit and comes back and stays in the bathroom and sucks her thumb. And then you've got Martha and Nick who go upstairs and try to get it on, but he can't get it. They can't get it on. He can't. And then you've got George in the movie. In the movie, they go outside, get in the car. Did you watch the movie, by the way?
Miss Beddick showed us the scene where they leave the house.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's a good scene. You need. I think plays need to be watched. I don't like movies just turning it on and sit back and go to sleep and have a rest for an hour. But there's certain things you need to see, and you need to see some of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf because but they don't leave. So everything that happened in that bar out on the road happens in the living room. Now, people are gone and Honey's passed out and, after they reveal their situation. Now, but the other thing that you need to remember about it is, you do not refer to anything that my boys, I told you yesterday, Abby doesn't have sense of humor. And if they see anything in there that suggests that American kids are just watching, and it's not that I don't mean that they're down on America, I don't mean that. But one of the things that they, when they're evaluating schools, and when I started the program in I had to start it in 90 and got it approved in 92. That's one of the things when I had to visit other schools, they would mark it down. All American kids do is watch movies. They don't really read. They don't do that. So use the text and use your brain. Okay, now let's look at the characters and let's talk about it. Characters are Martha, and remember her age. She is 52, and George is 46. She is older than he is. Now, typically, not necessarily in America anymore, but if you're going to go traditionally, the male is older than the female. And in older situations, the female, as soon as she's gone through puberty, pretty much is of marriageable age. The male, not necessarily so much. So I'm not going to go through all the statistics for you. And remember, I'm talking stereotypes. I'm not talking about facts and figures. But if you go back and look now, there is a difference in American history. When I talk about this is an American play and the stars are George and Martha. Who do you think of? George and Martha Washington. And Martha Washington was Martha Custis, who was a widow who married George Washington, and she had inherited, and they went to live at Mount Vernon. She was the heiress, and she was older than George Washington. They had a wonderful marriage, but I'm not sure their age difference was exactly what George and Martha's is, but it is. Now, do you write about that in your essay? Not necessarily. You just say perhaps in bringing to mind George and Martha, but you're not going to say, wow, this is. But from the very beginning, you say, there sure were a lot of names out there for him to pick from, but he chose he had to call something. Now, again, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to use, but it lets you know some of what he wanted to do with this play. Love Edward Albee. He just died 3 months ago. Love it. How did he name this play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? He had already written the play, except for the few lines where they sing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. He had already written the play for the most part, 95% of it. And he was at a bar. I'm sure he ordered root beer. And he was at a bar, and he saw up on the bulletin board behind him, have people just leave little messages, and somebody had written on an index card, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? With a question mark. He said, that's my title. Now, so when how did you choose this title? And he'll say, well, I saw it on the bulletin board of a bar. And said, yeah, that's what I'm going to name my play. However, it's not just random. Virginia Woolf, you know Point of View, don't you? Have you all read A Room of One's Own? They don't think so. I'm not going to go there. Virginia Woolf was a British feminist. I mean, honey child, she was all the way over here. She was a feminist, and she wrote to the Lighthouse. She also wrote, I'm not going to go in there to show off. But what I am going to say is that she wrote in internal monologue that everything was stream of consciousness. And so when he says, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Mary, what does he mean afraid of Virginia Woolf? It's this internal monologue. I'll tell you one thing, There are a lot of things. If I'm afraid of something, it's so easy to project out there, and I'm afraid of ISIS. And I am. My daughter and her husband are visiting from England right now. And the day after they got here, the attack was just a few blocks from where her husband was. Anyway, what I'm saying is but more, and we talked about that a lot. What are we afraid of? I wish ISIS were not there, but that's not my only fear. The things that scare me the most are things in here. My thoughts, my regrets, my guilt, my all of that. So it's much easier for me to project out there than it is for me to look inside. And so the title, Who's Afraid of Virginia? Well, look at all four of these people. Look at all of them. And if it's any kind of commentary, what is the most common motif all the way through this play? It is alcohol. Do you think alcohol might have a cause for concern in American society? Incredible. So America's reliance on alcohol, is that what the play's about? I don't know. It's got a lot of things. But all I know is that whenever I get afraid of looking inside, I'm talking generically, I'm not a drunk, okay? But anyway, I may be a lot of things, but I'm not that. But how do the characters in this play handle anything that gets a little too sensitive? You want another drink? I had a student one year. Who went through and counted how many times people had a drink in this play. You'd be dead. Because how many hours? It's over about 5 or 6 hours, but they've also been to a party ahead of time. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I don't know how long it takes you to, but they're not eating anything. Did you notice that? And they're not mixing it up. It's straight gin and then straight bourbon and what does Honey drink? Just a minute. Brandy. Never mix, don't worry. So there's a lot of statement here about how we handle our things. And if it's not alcohol, what has the same effect on you that you can, what about drugs? Some of them legal, some of them not. So that's how we handle things. Now let's look at all four characters. And then also let's look at the 3 acts, fun and games. Look here, acts, fun and games, Walpurgisnacht, and the exorcism. Fun and games is just ha 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 ha. Even starts out with Martha saying, "Who's afraid of getting up?" Blah blah blah. And they go back and forth. And George is needling her, and Nick and her are just kind of. Now, the second is Walpurgisnacht. German student, you know that it's a genuine. When I say holiday, that's not right, but it's a legitimate calling of a day. But it's also, enough about one of the biggest diseases in our country today is anorexia and the purging that comes with it. So Walpurgisnacht, in other words, if you eat food, it's evil. You want to get it out. What are you all talking about that back there? Huh? No, I don't care what you're doing. I just want to know what you're why you're not listening. Huh? Okay, well, it's good. It's also kind of rude. Okay, that's all right. I forgive you since you asked forgiveness. All right. I wouldn't do that to you. If you were talking to me, and this is just a lesson on everything. When do you remember what I said about eye contact?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. It is essential. When you don't give somebody eye contact, I love you. I mean, as a person, we have a background, nothing against you. Anyway, I've talked too much about that. It's none of my business, not my class. All right, let's look, though, at the Walpurgis Night. What comes out in this? At the beginning of it, we have George is a failure. He's not, he's in the history department, but he's not the history department. And Martha comes on to Nick. It's just pathetic. This lady, 56 years old, coming on to this 28-year-old. That's how old he is, 28? 30, God, I'm sorry. However old he is. And she's 26 years older than he is. She said, hey, you want to have some fun? Please. Are you that desperate? Are you that desperate? And right there in front of his wife, or at least she's left the room in front of George. And then we have, and her daddy is the head of the school. And then we have George, who is a failure. He just teaches a few classes. He's not a popular professor. He was going to be groomed to take over the university from Martha's father, but he doesn't. And he's a failure. He just sits around and criticizes Martha. Then we have Nick. He's in good shape. He's a middleweight boxing champ, and he was a quarterback on the football team, and he's just handsome, and he's good. And Honey, who's sort of, the description of her is somewhat plain. Is that correct? Dowdy. And she's boring. And so here we have this hunk of a guy that anybody supposedly would want to go with. And he's married to Honey. Oh, his body is firm. And she gets drunk, throws up, purging. And so that's the way it appears. And then what happened, what did we find out in Walpurgis Night? We found out, number one, that George had written a book. And what did he write the book about? Killing his parents. Did he really kill his parents? It was a book about a boy who got his permit, and they was out on a country lane, and he swerved and hit a tree to avoid a porcupine and killed his mother. And also killed his father a similar way. Now, stop just there. Golly, all this avoiding a porcupine? What do you know about porcupine? They have spindle, yeah, that's right. And it can hurt you. They're sticky and prickly. And we don't want to hurt people. It hurts people. So when he says he killed his mother to avoid hitting a porcupine, could be. Could be, if it's totally realistic. Or it could be, I don't know about you all, my parents are both dead. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about ways that possibly I hurt them or disappointed them. A few times on purpose, but most of the time just in small ways or large ways. And so there are a lot of ways to kill our parents without running into a tree to avoid a porcupine. And so look at George, he's a history professor. How would he hurt his parents? You make it up, but there are a lot of different ways. Now Martha, on the other hand, but he wrote the book. It was probably a psychological study, and that father said, you're not going to publish that crap. No, that's pitiful. No, not in my school. All right, now Martha, she is the campus lush, and I use the word because that's how she's a whore. Every new person that comes to town, she comes to the school, she tries to sleep with. All right, now let's look at the very end of the play, and then the other thing that comes out in Walpurgis Night is that Nick tells George that the only reason he married Honey was that she was pregnant. She blew up, and then she went down. A hysterical pregnancy. did it not dawn on any of us that maybe she told him she was pregnant? We don't know that. We don't know that. But whatever it is, and again, this is used in Death of a Salesman and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, baggage. George says, and then we've got this new stud here who came along with his baggage. Honey is not going, if he ever wants to be the president of the university, Honey's not going to be a very good first lady. Hi, I'm Honey. I'm so glad to meet. I love Honey. She's fine, but there's certain things she's not a fixed part. Let's look at the very end. Then George and the child that they have managed to. I want you to promise me you'll do something. Go back and read the passage. I'm going to give you page numbers, as a matter of fact. Page 228 to 238. 228 to 238. You can do this when I'm not here. This is George and Martha talking about their son to Honey and Nick. And it is total projection. What does the role of the child play? Now, you notice Martha talks about walking with the son in between George and Martha. And they're walking along like this. The son is the buffer between George and Martha. Have you ever heard of parents using children as the buffer to stay together? Classic. And so the son, instead of talking to each other, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, they talk about the son. And she says, he can't stand to come talk to you because you're such a failure. And he's like, well, he can't stand you. You're always coming in the bathroom fiddling with him. Of course, that's not true, but Martha makes George seem almost impotent, both sexually and otherwise, because Martha's always the one promoting the sex. Come here and give mommy a big sloppy kiss. And then he comes into the living room with the gun, symbol of male dominant gun. Females too, but it's a male symbol. I'm not going to draw the anatomy for you. And so he shoots the gun, and what comes out of it? An umbrella. And scares them. And then she says to Nick, you don't need any fake guns, do you? Always the primary. So George finally says, he realizes that the son, the concept of the son, is destroying their marriage. He tells Martha the son is dead. And she says, no. Be sure to read those last 20 pages. But for right now, I want us to look at the last 5 or 6 pages of the play. And as far as I'm concerned, it makes the play, we'll talk about how it makes the play. All right, turn to page 252. If you don't have the book, I'll see if I can find one up here for you. Now, George and Honey have been, tomorrow, I'll tell you what I want them to do tomorrow with this. As a matter of fact, would it hurt your feelings if I came back for 10 minutes tomorrow? Okay, I'll see you for 10 minutes. Raise your hand if you're going to be gone tomorrow. Nobody. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. I won't be here long.